Tell us about how you started writing, that it was a chance encounter with C.S. Forester of Horatio Hornblower fame, I believe.
It was. I was shipped over to Washington as an assistant editor. I didn't want to go. I wasn't able to fly in combat, as it were, anymore, because I'd been too badly wounded. But I was looking forward to getting back to instruction. And I was taken to a little, this is a little-known story, actually. I was kicking my heels in an RAF camp in Uxbridge, and a chap said to me, "We can't stay here. I'll take you up to London to dinner." And I was a very unsophisticated young man. And I said, "Oh, good, thank you." And he took me up, and we finished up in a very, very famous club in London, which is also extremely exclusive, called Pratt's. It's still there, and the members are few, cabinet ministers and all that lot. And they all dine at one long table. Whoever you are, you take your place and you dine. And I sat there with this friend of mine who was a fairly influential character. And I sat next to another man, and we chatted away during dinner. And then I was taken back to Uxbridge by my friend. Next morning, I was summoned to the CO at Uxbridge, who said, "The Secretary of State for Air wants to see you." And he had awe in his voice himself, this group captain. And I said, "Well, crikey, what the hell's that?" He said, "I don't know, my boy, but you get up there fast. There's a car waiting." And I had been sitting next to him, you see, Sir Archibald Sinclair, whoever it was. And he said, "This is a likable young man, and he's just right for us to send to Washington as an air attaché." And I trembled into his office. And he was running the whole ruddy Air Force, for heaven's sake. And he said, "You're going to Washington." And I recognized him. I said, "That's the chap having dinner with last night." And I said, "I don't want to go, sir. I'd rather..." He said, "Rubbish. Go on. You're just the right chap. Off you go." So off I went. And the moment I got there, I was sitting in the embassy wondering what on earth I was doing as an assistant air attaché, and a little head poked around the door with thick glasses and said, "My name is C.S. Forester." Well, I was an avid reader of every book in the world, and I said, "Oh, come on, stop bullshitting." And he said, "No, honestly, I am." And then I sort of realized he was. He said, "Look, not many people in America, we're trying to interest them in the war, and not many people have been in combat over here. Could I take you out to lunch, and then you tell me the most exciting story, and I'll write it. I can publish anything I want over here. Saturday Evening Post will give me a..." And I said, "Oh, yes, I'll come out to lunch."
Before Pearl Harbor?
It was... Yes, it must have been before Pearl. We were trying to get America into the war on our side. Churchill was madly trying to get them in. Yes, it must have been before Pearl Harbor. And I went out to lunch with him and having a delicious roast duck. And he was trying to eat it and take notes of me being shot down in the desert or something, you see. And I saw it. I said, "Look, could I help you? If I go home tonight after work and make some notes and write the whole thing in note form, or write it anyway, you can put it right. You'll do it and put it properly in proper English. Would that help?" "Oh, gosh," he said, "it'd be lovely. Would you do that?" I said, "Of course I will. Yes." And we went on eating our duck then, and so I went home that night and I wrote it. And it's a very funny experience, actually, because I found it coming nicely, flowing nicely, and actually almost subconsciously found myself doing little bits of dialogue and things like that, you know. I didn't realize when I folded up and sent it to C.S. Forester that it was a complete story. But a week later, I got a letter back saying, Did you know you were a writer? I haven't touched a word. Saturday Evening Post have bought it. Here's the check for $1,000, and they want anything else you'll give them. So that was, you asked me how I started.
That was how you started.
Yes, it was the true story of how I started. And the interesting thing to me about that is that if C.S. Forrester hadn't poked his head round the door, I had a good job when the war finished with Shell Company in East Africa, and I guess I would have gone back.